Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 18th episode of Writers Uncut. I am Cheyenne Young, your co host, and we're waiting for Deirdre Riordan Hall to join us so we can get started on our episode today. Waiting for her to join us. Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining me. I don't know where Deirdre is. We're still waiting on her. I wonder if she's here. There she is. Okay, now I can add bar. Well, it's 9 a.m. where she is, and it's lunchtime here for me, so she has to wake up really early to join these things. Hey, Deirdre.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So, I was just telling Jen, who's my favorite watcher of these things, that this is our 18th episode.
Crazy. How 18
And
weeks been doing this?
well, it kind of reminds me of writing a manuscript because I can relate anything in the world to writing a manuscript. But if you'll remember, we used to talk about this for probably over a year. We've talked about we should start something, we should do videos, we should kind of do something. And it was just always like we'll do it in the future at some point.
Yes.
And then one day, around 20 weeks ago, I guess, because we did take off for Christmas. Hi, Chewy.
Oh, yeah.
I said, we were like, we need to do this, we should do this. And I said, what about tomorrow? Let's just do it. And now you hear my dog barking. But yeah, I was like, why don't we just do it? And it's really a lot like writing manuscript. Like, you can talk about it forever, but it won't get done unless you do it. And now we have 18 episodes, which is almost a full manuscript's worth of chapters. So, hi, Tracy. Thanks for joining.
I love that.
Yeah, so I wanted to introduce us real quick, if you don't mind, because I have stacks of books everywhere. Because this is our 18th episode, so if someone's just starting, they may not have seen the others. I am Cheyenne Young, and I'm the author of The Last Wish of Sasha Cade. In real life, the cover's not backwards. It is about a girl whose best friend dies, and a week later, she gets a letter in the mail from her that sends her on a scavenger hunt. And you didn't have to do that, Deirdre, because my co-host is the author of Sugar, which is also not backwards in real life. She has several books. This is my absolute favorite, and I think if you liked Julie Murphy's Dumplin' or Kelly DeVos's Fat Girl on a Plane, you're going to adore this book. It's really good, so check it out. And we also have several other books too, so check those out. But these are the ones that I dug out of the piles of books in my office. So
Has the hurricane passed? Is everything on the shelves, or is it still?
you'll see you've got a different view of me today. So I wasn't joking last week when I said that my procrastination was so strong I was going to reorganize my office. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I moved my desk in front of the window, so I've got all this natural light coming in.
I like it.
And so this is behind me. And then this side are my new bookshelves, which was a nightmare. You probably can't see. Maybe you can. I bashed my thumb with the hammer, so it hurts really bad. And then over here is like the tornado zone of horribleness. And I don't know when I'm going to get everything organized, but I will post pictures when it's done.
I have major envy, bookshelf envy. I mean, your bookshelves were awesome to begin with. Like, they were really fun and like a lot of good energy with like the stars and the lights and everything. Like, if I was in your office, I would just be like standing there looking at everything.
That's kind of everyone that comes to my house, that is what they do. But because of my old shelves, which you might remember from previous episodes or Instagram pictures, I had two tall shelves, and they had been dragged from like 4 different houses that we've moved. So they were beat up, the shelves were sagging, they were old. And then I had like a hodgepodge, and I still have some of them in here, of smaller random shelves that I just picked up when I needed new shelves. So this time I bought 4 nice, pretty new shelves, and they're all next to each other, and they look really nice. And I almost broke my thumb putting them together. But, one thumb bash with the hammer out of like 100 nails was actually pretty good for me. So I'm really excited, and they're going to look amazing when they're done.
The things we do for the love of books.
and for the love of procrastinating, because like I said, there wasn't anything inherently wrong with my office till I decided I didn't want to work on my new manuscript and I needed a project around the house.
Well, I'm
But
excited for your shelfies. Like I'm living vicariously through you because my bookshelf is right there, and it's just 3 shelves, and so the books are kind of scattered around the house. Some of them are in my kids' rooms, like we kind of share a little bit, but I don't have anything even close to the amazing, outstanding shelves situation that you have. The collection is really,
which
really,
is,
really intense and amazing.
oh my gosh, and I got rid of so many books too, and I feel so bad about it. But this is what happens when you watch the Marie Kondo TV show. You clean. But anyway, so I'm donating a lot of books to Better Homes, and I have a ton of middle grade books. So if any of my local friends are watching this and you have kids, you might want to have all the Wimpy Kids, like just tons and tons of middle grade books that my daughter doesn't read anymore. And I was like, you know what? It's
Yeah.
time to get rid of these. So it hurts, but I have to let them go to homes that are going to love them because they're not getting read here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway, today, thank you guys for joining us. We have a lot of watchers. We normally don't have that many.
Welcome, everyone. This is Writers
Today, yes, episode 18. So today we wanted to talk about the writing craft and just all about writing and kind of leave publishing out of it for a while because I feel like we've had several episodes in a row about publishing. So would you like to begin? Because you recently read a book that you said has been super inspiring for your writing process.
Yes, actually, let me grab it. You actually introduced it to me years and years ago. I don't know if anyone knows this, but I kind of started writing children's books, and then I jumped quickly into writing screenplays because I was going to write movies and move to Hollywood. I don't know what I was thinking. This is like in the early 2000s.
Well, you live close enough.
Yeah, but then I read I think I was aware of the whole save the cat method, and I knew all about that, and it was really, I think it's really great, but it kind of like flew from my mind because I was really became involved in novel writing. And then you a couple weeks ago showed this book to me. It's obviously not backwards. Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody, and I devoured it, and I have like, oh, maybe you can't see, but I have like all, it's all marked up, and it's been really helpful in helping me like have a deeper understanding of structure. And I think any good story that you've ever written, you're just absorbed in the story and you're not thinking about when certain things are happening, but it's all there, like the underpinning. It's a kind of like an architectural thing that's present in every story pretty much. There's a few outliers that still work, but they all work, and we move from the first page to the last because of this underpinning, because of this, these beats happen in a certain progression. And having a deeper understanding of that, I think, has really helped me with my writing, and will help me in the future. But I'll just say one thing. Speaking of procrastinating, kind of like I had this resistance. Like I read through this book and I'm like, yes, this is amazing and I love it. Wow, like this is in every story, and the author actually breaks down a lot of stories to help you understand like what it is in real time. It's not just sort of like this dry, like, okay, this happens and then this happens and make sure you have this. But she picks apart, popular best-selling books and helps you understand where everything is happening in those. But anyway, so I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to apply this to the books that I've written and just look at a few of them and kind of go through the exercise of seeing where I'm hitting these marks and where I'm missing them. But I found I was like so resistant to doing it. I'm like, no, like I'm sure I did, and I just, because it's like intuitive, it's in my mind, like I'm a writer, and I just did not want to like, get out my notebook and like write down, okay, this is the midpoint, this is and so then I finally did it. Okay, this is interesting, because there's like, I think when we get stuck in our books, or when we find something doesn't feel right, or it's not working, or maybe we have writer's block or whatever, it's oftentimes because we're not hitting these marks, or hitting the beats, as she calls them in the book. And so it's like an interesting way to kind of think more about the technical side of writing, which
Absolutely.
I can get nerdy about, but I can also be like, no, I don't want to do it.
Well, I think, and it's funny that you bring this. I wish I had had this book before I started writing because I wrote a few manuscripts just for fun until I even discovered what the hero's journey was.
Mm.
And now, if you go to my website or the link in my profile link tree, I have a link to my outline that I use to start every single manuscript I write. And I've already put those beats in there so I can kind of be thinking about them as I start to outline because it really is all about story structure.
Mm.
And what's funny is when I was a beginner writer, I thought it was all about pretty sentences. Like, like what's a beautiful metaphor I can think of right here? Or what's a fun way to describe something? Like, that's what I thought you had to be good at to write a novel. And it turns out you really need the structure of the story because those beautiful sentences with no story structure, nobody wants to read that. So I really try to focus more on story and on characterization because I feel that my weakest point is that beautiful writing. Like, I feel like my books are kind of more simply written, but they have heart. And then I'll pick up a book like I cannot pronounce her last name. You can, Maggie.
Steve Otter.
Yeah. So I'll pick up one of her books, which is absolutely beautifully written, and it reads like poetry. And it's like, oh man, I could never do this. But she also still has all the story elements there. So even if you're not this amazing poetic writer, as long as you have the story elements there, it's going to make your book fun to read.
Yeah.
Because like you are actually phenomenal at metaphors. I could start reading them because I have my copy of Sugar like all marked up. I don't know if I'll do that to you. But you write some very beautiful writing. And so my question for you is, does that come naturally or did you purposely find those amazing metaphors that you put in your books?
Well, thank you. I feel so flattered. Like, yeah. And I need a little boost today. I don't know if you can tell I have a cold. So
no, you sound okay.
If I start coughing, just I'll be back. But thank you for saying that. That's really nice. And no, I think that's what comes naturally. And I think the structure, like the for lack of a better word, like the formula, the 3-act structure, I think is where my weakness is. Cause I can just write whatever all day long and be like in my own little world. But then when I look at it and be like, okay, like, did I have like a theme in the beginning or like a catalyst? I don't know. Like I have to be more conscientious of that when I'm writing. I think Chewy, it's okay. Here, say hi.
Hi, Chewy. Oh. Oh.
But see, I think you're amazing. It's like I always say, like you're the master storyteller. Like I think you intuitively get all of that. And so we complement each other quite well.
We really do. We need to write a book together.
We do. We actually. But,
we should take like a 3-month vacation to somewhere tropical away from our families and just work on the book.
All right, let's do it.
So if people want to donate to that travel fund, that would be great. Yeah, so I like when we talk about story structure because that book is amazing and I actually have it. My copy is downstairs on the couch on top of my notebook for the new book I'm planning because I just kind of am flipping through it and also outlining my new novel. So this is a whole new step for me. And like I've said before, every single book I write has a different process to it. They're all written differently, even though I have my little formula outline and I have my like quirks of how I like to write. Every book still comes together differently. So this new one is going to be 100% based off of Save the Cat Writes a Novel. So it should hopefully be good. But I remember, and it's funny because when I first started writing a long time ago, I had remembered my high school English teacher talking about the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. And we had to pick a bunch of movies and break apart the hero's journey. And I did The Princess Bride, obviously the best hero's journey there is. And then I remember hearing her say in creative writing, your character needs, like, if your character wants to go from point A to point B, mm-hmm. they can't just walk there. Mm-hmm. They have to fall, and this one hits home now. They have to fall and break their leg along the way. They have to stop and get in a fight. They got to get lost. And, a bird poops on their head or something. Like, they cannot just, and this is all metaphorical, they cannot just go from point A to point B. So I think that constantly when I'm writing, it's like every time my character has a win or something awesome happen, I'm like, okay, how can I destroy your life now? Mm-hmm. Even if it's just a little bit. And sometimes I call them like my fake outs. Like, I don't know, the cops show up or something, but then they run away and they don't get caught.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't have everything just all hunky-dory happy
Yeah.
for your character throughout the whole story. You have to constantly be beating them over the head,
Yeah.
metaphorically, or, you know, non-metaphorically, if depending on the genre. So that's what kind of my thought process every time I
Yeah.
want my character to do something is, where are they going and how can I make their journey to that place
Mm-hmm.
be as painful as possible?
I think for certain personalities, probably like mine, and for beginning writers as well, I think sometimes we make it too easy on our characters, and that doesn't make a good story. Like creating conflict, tension, and that what you were saying, like that push and pull, like and actually fantasy does this really well. Like especially I'm thinking specifically
Oh
like
yeah.
Rings, where like they're on an actual journey and they're just as obstacle after obstacle, and you know they're going to get there. You know, like if you're writing romance, you know there's going to be a happily ever after, but there has to be that, just, you know, like you're just beating them over the head with just like problem after problem after problem, and that's how they resolve those is what shapes the character. That's like the inner experience, or the B story, as she talks about in the book. And by the way, this is not an ad or a commercial or anything.
No, I was gonna say we need
Really
to
good book.
we need to buy those wholesale and sell them or something. So, but yeah, it's, I love the A story, B story, C story, and I learned a lot about that. This is gonna sound ridiculous. From 6 years of listening to weekly episodes of a podcast that dissected every new episode of The Office. Um, it was on
Wow.
my favorite podcasts, and they're not live anymore. Obviously, The Office isn't live anymore, but they would actually break down each episode and talk about it critically and everything. And they always pointed out the A plot, B plot, and C plot.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I listened to that I realized that was even a thing.
Yeah.
And now I see it in every single show. There's always like two maybe, but mostly three different kind of subplots in the whole overall story. And I also apply that to my writing as well.
Yeah.
So, and another thing so I'm just kind of tossing out advice as I think of it, honestly, because we're just riffing here. You guys, if y'all are watching and you have any question related to anything, writing, publishing, or Bob's Burgers or The Office, I'd be happy to answer it, because I'm a self-declared genius on both of those TV shows. Which is another form of procrastination. But what was I going to say? So one of my other favorite things to do, and then I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
Well, we were about A, B, and C story.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So another bit of advice that I heard once, and I think Susan Dennard said it. I'm not 100% sure. It was years and years ago. She said, when you're writing your book, remember that every single character, even the side characters, even the ones we only see in one paragraph on one page and then never again, each character is the hero of their own story. And they have their own goals and their own desires and their own stakes. And that was so powerful of me to hear that, because when you throw in these side characters, or even like a big side character, like the best friend or something that's in several scenes, like you can't just have them willy-nilly say whatever because they don't matter. They do matter. And you need to know what their story is, even if it's never shown on the page. Like, you know, whatever their desires are, their conflicts, whatever it is, even if it's never on the page, whatever it is in them is how they're going to react and act. And that makes your characters more detailed and you know what I mean? Like, exciting.
And it like because they're the hero of their own story, that's going to inform every decision they make. So if they're influencing their main character or the plot in any way, it has to seem authentic and genuine. So you need to know where they're coming from, what their goals are, what their wants are. And then I'll also add, even the antagonist is the hero of their own story. And so that can be like hard to wrap your head around, because like they're the bad guy. Like you just, you know, you want to like tell them the boss because they suck. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's my favorite plot line right there, is that the villain is the hero of his own story. And that's how I wrote City of Legends, because my villain, if that's a superhero story, my villain thinks he's doing the right thing the whole time when he's terrorizing everyone and doing all this bad stuff in his heart. And we find out why he thinks it's the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I loved writing that villain in particular, because I feel like the rest of my books don't really have villains so much. They're usually outside forces that are the bad guys. But what I loved about writing that was I feel like I could rewrite that entire series from his point of view.
Yes.
And he would be the hero of the story.
Yes.
And my superheroes would be the bad guys that are trying to stop him at every turn. So that's really fun and a really exciting way to write. And I think it was Jen said my favorite Office character, Michael Scott, obviously, hands down.
And Tracy says, watch Roswell, New Mexico. It's addictive.
I haven't even heard of that.
Neither.
But I do have this.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, it says the International UFO Museum and Research Center from Roswell.
Have you been there?
No, someone mailed it to me a long time ago, and I don't remember what, why, when, or how, but I had it stuck to the side of an old bookshelf, so I took it off so I could put it on my new bookshelf. Yeah. So I'm going to have to look that up. Is it streaming anywhere? Hulu or Netflix? Because that's all I have. I don't have TV. But
I was actually going to say a really fun bonus. I mean, probably like you're beyond this in terms of what you want to be spending your time on, but a really fun bonus for readers would be to read the short story version or like a little novella of the villain and, you know, or the bad guy or like the, you know, the antagonist, whatever, and kind of get into their head and kind of explore that. And from movies, I'll just add, I think Thanos is the perfect example.
Oh yeah.
Of someone who thinks they're in the right, like they're the hero of their own journey. They think they're doing the right thing for humanity.
I agree with them halfway. If you're ever like standing in line at a grocery store in Houston, Texas, you're going to say, you know what? It would be great if the population was 50% of what it is now. But anyway, I don't condone snapping my fingers and turning people to dust. I'm just saying, like, he is a villain that I can understand why he thinks he's the hero of his own story.
And I think that's genius. Like, that's genius characterization. Tracy says Nathan Parsons is swoon-worthy, and it's on CW, so Netflix will get it. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to add it to my list of shows to procrastinate.
Yes.
Also,
Loki. Yeah.
Killmonger I haven't seen Black Panther.
Oh, Black Panther was so good.
I haven't seen it.
Killmonger is Jen. I can't remember which character that was.
I'm guessing he's the bad guy.
That's such a comic book name.
I know, right? She said Loki. I know. I love Loki so much. He was vastly inspired by the villain in City of Legends.
Yeah. Loki.
Which now that you've said that, like, I have absolutely no time and no reason to do this at all. But I kind of want to write a little short story from my villain's point of view from that story, because he was really seeking revenge, but his revenge was 100% justifiable in my opinion. Yeah. And the heroes on that story even admitted that. They were kind of like, yeah, we screwed up. Like, we did him wrong. And he was still the bad guy, though. So, because his actions to try and get revenge was immoral and horrible.
Yes.
That's Michael B. Jordan. Oh my God, he's so hot.
Yes. I know exactly who you mean. Yeah. And so it's like, I think it's really, really effective writing when you can almost make the reader, the viewer, and if it's a movie, sympathize with the antagonist, and in that case, like, it's not just black and white, like, okay, they're wrong and our good guys are right. It creates a more integrated, almost like a real life scenario where it's like, okay, this is a little bit not vague, but like shades of gray here. And I think that's a really, really good, compelling way to write
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm thinking about the book I'm plotting out right now, and there's not necessarily a bad guy, but you know who I'm talking about. It's the boyfriend. I really love that, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to write to where my main character and the boyfriend, who's essentially the bad guy, but not really, to where you can see it from both of their points of view, and it really will kind of tear at your heartstrings, like what should happen. Yeah. And I know I'm being super vague here, but I don't want to give away the plot before I've written it, so. Yeah. Jennifer said, I don't know if y'all still watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Oh my God, yes.
Cool.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the best show on television right now. Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Bob's Burgers. But if you don't watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you need to watch it. But yeah. Andy Samberg, he's like, cool motive, still murder. Yeah. I forget what scene that was from, but like the guy, he had murdered someone. He said he did it for love or something. Yeah. And Andy's a cop, and he's like, well, that was a cool motive, but it's still murder. So yeah, that's how my bad guy is in City of Legends. It's like, we get why you did it, and you're justified, and we probably would have done it too, but it was still wrong. Yeah. So I love writing those types of characters because it'll make the reader kind of feel And it's not just, oh, here's a big bad guy that's just bad, 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 and we hate him. Like, who cares? That's a flat character.
Yeah.
It's really great if you can see it from their point of view.
To add that dimension into it, and I think it's a more satisfying experience for the reader, as like, you know, as dark and like terrible as any of that is. It's like, okay, you know, like this is, there's depth here and stuff. Yeah. I'm gonna reiterate, if anyone has questions about writing or, you know, and any of the above, pop them in the comment box and we're happy to kind of just answer on the fly. That's what we do here on Writers Uncut.
Yes. So I had another tip that I was going to talk about when it comes to writing. And this is something that works really well for me. And I've told some authors about this, and they say, no, there's no way I could do that. So I encourage everyone to try it out. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work. I'm a very fast writer and a fast director. And one thing I do is I don't get caught up on the little nuances of my writing. I just spit it all out on the page, and then I worry about it in editing. So like I said, you write some amazing metaphors and just really beautiful sentences. And when I'm drafting, I would much rather be editing than drafting. So when I'm drafting, I just get it all out there and I write all the cliches and all this boring, stupid, you know, tropey stuff, and just get it out there. And then I worry about it later. So like, as I'm writing, I'll make my characters smile and sigh and shrug and like all of those annoying things that you have to delete from your manuscript because it's blah, it's poor writing. Or I will tell instead of show, or I'll use, you know, overused boring metaphors like it's dead as a doornail or something. So you just get it all out there, and I don't think about it, and I write it fast, and my chapters are around 2,000 to 3,000 words, and I get them done in 20 to 30 minutes. And then it's done. And then I have a first draft. And then I go through I'm
pausing you. You write 2,000 to 3,000 words in 30 minutes?
Yeah, I've got 6,000 words in an hour before.
And are you pedaling?
Again, yes, while pedaling on the bike desk with my Alpha Smart.
I'm getting a bit...
Again, I probably couldn't do that on a laptop because I'd get too distracted. But I use a little Alpha Smart, and it is right here. This thing, you guys, $30 on eBay, and all it does is just a little keyboard. All it does, it holds 10,000 words approximately, and you just type on it, and it takes AA batteries, and I've had mine for like 3 years, and I've changed the batteries twice, and I write on it almost every day. And then when you're done, you upload it to your computer. Again, check out my website. I've written a whole blog post about it. So yeah, it's distraction-free writing, and I write super fast. And yeah, I throw in all the, you know, the stuff you shouldn't write about, or the adverbs and everything. And then when it's on, I put it on my computer, and then I give it 1 or 2 passes, which maybe takes an hour, and then I'm done for the day. And then I leave it alone, and then when the whole manuscript's done, then I revise the whole thing. But that's when you add in the pretty writing, and I take out all the smiles and shrugs. Like my characters, they smile and they shrug constantly when I'm drafting. But, you know, you just let it fly. It is what it is, because what matters is getting the story out there. And I thought, because people are like, how do you write a book in a month or less? And I'm like, because it's a crappy book. Like, I just get it out there.
It's the zero draft, really, is what it is.
Yes, and then I make it better. And I personally think, like, for instance, like eye color, like, you want your hero's eyes to be this beautiful shade of blue or something. And it's a special moment where she's gazing into his eyes. I'll just type, you know, like, I gaze into his blue eyes, blah, 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 and just go on. And then I come back and I make it better, because I have found if I stop in the moment and I'm like, okay, this would be a beautiful place for some kind of metaphor, you know, set the scene, this like beautiful imagery. And I stop and try to think of it right there. I'm going to wait 15 minutes. And then I'm done. And then I'm pulled from the story, and then I'm checking my phone. And you know what I mean? It's like, then I'm distracted. So I tell everyone to try to just quick draft and just let all those ugly, bad words fly, because you can go back and fix them. And it's so much easier for me to go back and fix them. So that's one of my writing tips for the day. Jennifer said her characters smirk like nobody's business. Oh my God, mine do too. And then when they smile too much, they start grinning. So it's like...
I'm going to just add one quick thing about what you were saying. I quick draft too, not as quick as that, certainly. And I do I pepper in a lot of my, you know, my flowery, whatever you want to call it, prose, as I'm going. But then I do go back and layer things in and try and, you know, I do a fast draft, and it'll usually take me like 2 weeks, which is, you know, not as fast as you, but, and then I'll go back in and I'll do one read, and I'll just make sure everything's congruent, make sure, you know, I don't have the smiled or shrugged or smirked, you know, 3 times in one paragraph, because that does happen. And when you're going fast, it's true. It's like you're vomiting the words onto the page, get it done. And I find for me, I don't know if, you know, just from when I was younger, I like damaged my brain or whatever, but I find that if I don't write fast, I lose threads. I'll forget, you know, that so
100%, me too.
Yeah, even if I keep notes, I do keep like a little character Bible with me by, you know, next to my computer, or a document where I, you know, I take note of like so-and-so's hair color, or, you know, little qualities that they might have.
Well, and the first book I wrote, I gave it to my friend to read, and she was like, "You do know the main character's mom's changes names like 3 times?" And I was like, "Oh," because I hadn't. Yeah, it's like if I take too long to write, I'm forgetting little bits and pieces and stuff like that. So for me, it's so much easier to just write it really fast, because it's still all in my head like a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's basically what I was saying. Like, it helps me, and, you know, and everybody has their own method. And I think one of the brilliant things about being a writer is that there isn't one single way to get from beginning to end. You know, there's a lot of different paths to take. And like you were saying at the beginning of our chat, each book, for me too, has a slightly different method. Never do I use the same method. Of course, yes, I use the 3-act structure, and all those things have to be in there, because that is like, that's the undergirding to the whole story. But you know, like you know, I might use a notebook to kind of flesh out some ideas. I might use a document. I might try someone's outline that they've created and kind of see where that fits in with what I'm working on. Yeah, so anyway, I lost my train of thought, but I did want to say, Jennifer asked a question, and I don't want to miss that, because it's kind of scrolling through. So I'm going to jump into that. How do y'all balance dialogue and description so it's not too heavy with either of them?
Put it all in, and your editor will take it out.
My answer is to step back a little bit and look at the page, and if it's, you want to have like a nice balance of white and black. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I had, with Sasha, I had kind of this, for a few chapters there, where every time somebody would say something, I would then describe them doing something. Yeah. So there was these conversations and my characters were moving around like crazy, and my editor like stripped almost all of that out. And she was like, "You don't need this. Trust me, it's better this way." Yeah. And it did. It made sense. So I think it's just balance. If you're having a quick, fast-paced conversation or maybe an argument, just throw that dialogue in there. If it's more slow or drawn out, then you can show the characters, you know, doing stuff. Yeah. But yeah, like Deirdre said, really, if you zoom out on your manuscript on the computer, if you write by hand, this won't be as helpful. Your page shouldn't be solid black lines, and it shouldn't be short, choppy sentences either. It should be a nice mixture of both. Yeah. So and that's what I do.
I'm actually going to add to what you were saying about pacing. I think that's a really important thing to look at when you're writing a scene or writing a chapter. You know, I think when you're on the hero's journey, we'll come back to that a little bit. You know, there's times when, like, you know, they're racing to the finish line, like something intense is happening, and in those scenes, you don't want like a description of the side. You want it to move, and so dependent on what the scene is that you're writing, you can kind of determine if you're going to have, you know, dialogue or like quick, almost like choppy or snappy descriptions, where if something big has just happened and they're settling down and reflecting, or, you know, if you're writing romance, you know, they had a fight and then, you know, they stepped away from that, and it's like more of a you know, you're kind of bringing the energy down. You can kind of incorporate more of the description, you know, more of the blocks of writing. Whereas if you're, you know, engaged in doing the dialogue, you want to kind of keep things moving. But I've been guilty of that as well, as what you said. You know, you almost like make your reader seasick with all like all the movements and like character attributes or whatever dialogue.
Well, and I didn't realize it because I thought it was like brilliant writing. But then when she pointed it out, I was like, yeah, they don't need to be doing something after every line that they say. And so you really just have to, but then if you realize if you have a long conversation and nobody's done anything for a while, make them do something. So you just kind of have to take it scene by scene and see how to balance that.
and I like what you do, where you kind of play it through your mind as a movie scene, and the visual. Like, you know, we're here talking. Like, I talk with my hands a lot, and you're still, and like everyone can follow the thread of the conversation if this was written on the page. Like, you know that I'm talking, you're talking, you're talking, I'm talking. If you have more than more than two characters, or if there's a lot of things going on, if they're in like a busy, you know, a setting, sometimes adding a few things to root the reader in that is important, and to make sure they're not losing track of who's saying what. But if it's just two people having a conversation, you know, every few lines you can just remind the reader, like kind of in the background, who's saying what. But yeah.
You just sparked another bit of advice for me. I'm just tossing out advice as I think of it, guys. So another, and I talk with my hands a lot too, but you can't see it. Like, I think I'm sitting too close because my hands are moving down here. They're just not on the screen. So I keep trying to bring them up if I want you to see something. So one thing my editor at for City of Legends taught me, which was amazing, because I really get bored of descriptions. I don't care about descriptions. And a lot of my characters, I don't fully describe them in the first draft because in my mind, I don't care. I care more about what they're doing than what they look like. And also the same with settings and scenery. And she told me that a great thing is every time you switch scenes to stop for a second and look around. So if you're writing first person, have your character mention even just one or two sentences about where they are and what it looks like. Or if it's third person, you can just describe it instead before you dive into the action. So don't ever start a chapter with, you know, like dialogue in some foreign place and your reader doesn't know where they are. Mm-hmm. If the new chapter or new scene starts and you're in a different location, you need to say that like almost immediately. You could have one line of dialogue and then, you know, root your reader in where you are.
Yeah.
And stop and look around. But don't look around too long, guys, because long descriptions in books, I skip over it every time. Like, there's just, and I think it's just a personal quirk because some people love it. Yeah. But like, especially fantasy novels have a lot of description. Yeah. It's like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
I get bored. So I want to get to the action. And sometimes when there's too many like blocks of text, I'll kind of skim down till I see the next dialogue tag, and that's what I start reading. And maybe that makes me a bad person, you guys. But it's like, that's the boring parts to me. I want to get to the good parts. So keep that in mind if you're describing too much stuff.
Yeah, I can agree with that. George R. Martin is very guilty of that in his books, but people love it. You know, it depends on your readers. It depends on what you're writing. But I'll also add, taking that moment, like you said, to have the character look around or be in the scene, you know, be in the scene is also a really nice way to subtly give the mood of the scene. So say they walk into like a bazaar, like a market, and it's like very vibrant and like a lot of stuff is happening. That might be reflective of what's going on inside of them, because we always want to be weaving together the, you know, the internal and the external stories.
That is such a cool point, because I just heard a scene where at the beginning of the chapter, the sky was dark and cloudy and this like wind, and it kind of smelled like rain was on the horizon. But they said, you know, well, you know, the weatherman said it's not going to rain today, whatever. And then by the end of the scene, when something super dramatic happened, I had the sky burst open and it's pelting her with the rain, which may be kind of cliche. But yeah, that you can absolutely use the setting to set the mood of your story.
But like you're saying, the reader's not like, you know, they're reading carefully what the dialogue is and like the action, but they're not reading, they're not like, oh, the clouds are gray and da-da-da-da. Like, you just kind of, you read it and you're not thinking about it. But then as you move through that scene, that's in their head, and that, like, they feel that foreboding or whatever it is, like something's going to happen. And so it kind of all works together in a nice way. Jen says, that's why I prefer YA fantasy to adult. There's always so much description in adult fantasy. Yeah.
Agreed.
Like, a little bit is good. Like, we want a little bit of it, but not like the whole.
Yeah. Well, and it really is just your writing style, because for me personally, my writing style is less on the description and more on the actions. And I'm also a little bit introspective. And I've had some beta readers tell me that I encourage them to make their characters more introspective than they want. It's like, maybe that's just my personal preference, because I write in first person and I like digging in deep to what the character's thinking.
Yeah.
And so I don't really care about description, and it's funny, and again, it's just me, because when I'm reading books with heavy description, I don't really pay much attention to it. I couldn't even tell you what these characters look like, because I care more about what's happening in the story. So again, personal preference.
Yeah.
But I keep having, another thought that I had, I don't know if I've done this before. So when you describe the setting, it's kind of the subliminal way of setting the mood of the story. And I think it might be kind of really fun to have your character walk into like a gloom and doom setting, and they're thinking, this is weird, this is the best day of my life, what's wrong with everybody else? Like maybe something opposite would be kind of neat because it would kind of shake them up.
Yeah.
And they could be thinking like, you know, am I forgetting something? Like,
yeah.
what's going on here?
Ways it can
So
work. Yeah.
that would be fun. So, and maybe try to keep that in mind and don't just write bland, places for no reason. Like have that setting be special.
Yeah. It can also,
and
I think what you're saying, it can also be the unexpected. Like
mm-hmm.
the character's feeling a certain way and then they're like thrown into this scenario where it's like, it's not reflecting how they're feeling. Yeah.
That's also a good way to beat them up from point A to point B, because your goal as an author should be to make your main character's life as miserable as possible. Yeah. And one of my favorite things to do, like with writing teen novels, is everyone's obsessed with their cell phone. I was just about to reach over and grab my phone and show it to you, but I'm talking on it. So anyway, one of my favorite things is like, so you say your character meets a new friend or a cute boy or something, and they're waiting on a text. Don't let them get that text. Make them wait and agonize over it. Make 5 or 6 other people text them before the person they want to text them. And it's like the reader knows they're eventually going to hear from this person and have a happily ever after. But you got to make them suffer first. Because a character that doesn't suffer is not a character worth reading.
Yeah.
But I might also argue, don't make them suffer too much. Because sometimes, like, I feel like TV shows really get carried away with that.
It can be
where it's like,
yeah,
it's like, because they've got to stretch it out over several episodes of the season. It's like, oh my God, just get to it. Like, we get it.
Yeah.
But so that's my advice. Can you think of any other writing advice?
I'll just add to something that you said about introspection. I think it's really important to be in the character's head. When all this stuff is going on, when they're suffering, when like their lives are thrown into chaos and there's conflict and tension and just like on and on and on. I think it's important for us, for the reader, like we know intuitively, like, oh yeah, this sucks. Like I would hate that if that happened to me or whatever. But I think it's important to also make sure, in the same way we were talking about, it's really important for the writer to know, the character's wants and needs and how they're the hero of their own story. The reader, it also needs to be written on the page, I guess is what I'm saying. It's intuitive that we know that, so-and-so's boyfriend cheated on them, and then, there's a car accident, and then this happened, and then that happened, and so on and so forth. And like, we know, like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, but at the same time, we want to know why the character thinks that and how it's making them feel and how it's kind of paving or directing or influencing any of the other decisions that they're making. Because, as we know, when life piles up on us, sometimes we start to make decisions that aren't in line with our integrity or whatever, and we want to see how that's all acting on the character, and then how they come through. That's the character arc, how they come through all that to the other side. And
my dog is over here wanting attention. Can you hear that?
I do.
You're being very rude.
I have an actual dog. He sits on
She's too big to get on my lap. What do you want? Go get your toy. Here.
Well, anyway, does anyone else have any questions? Any writers?
Yeah. And that's one of my critiques when I beta read manuscripts for people, is I will say, like, we don't know anything about what your character's thinking. So give us something, especially if they're acting out of character or if they're doing something immoral or terrible. We need to know why. This is a dog. I wish she could get up here and you guys could see her, but she can't. She's got her toy. She's like, it's been 40 minutes, guys. I need to play.
Yeah.
But Jennifer says hi to you. Here, let me show you guys. Nova, can you say hi? Right here. I don't know if you can see her or not.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, we saw her.
She's a bad girl.
Okay.
But
I got a question. Have you ever started a novel only to find halfway through that you don't like your protagonist?
I don't think so, but I tend to really daydream about my stories a lot before I start writing them, so I already know that I like my protagonist.
I think I'm trying to think through some of my books. I'm looking at the shelf with them on it. I'm trying to think of the protagonist. Like, I've been mad at them before. I've definitely been like, you're an idiot. Why are you doing this? But it's, you know, part of their growth process. And that's another thing. It's important for your character to kind of or for you to write it as if they're like they're taking a step forward, and then they're, you know, they're kind of taking a step back, like that. Is it 2 steps forward, 1 step back?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, you froze. Nope, there you are.
I went into low. I think we have 40 minutes on my phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can't say that I've not liked my character, because I can really shape the person into how I want them to be. But sometimes, yeah, I mean, I can see how that could happen, and I could see how, you know, they're just maybe not likable, and that's where Save the Cat comes from. Actually, I will wrap up with that. So
Jen says we both tilted our head in opposite directions while we thought. It might be the same direction because the camera does switch it. I don't know.
But so anyway, if you're wondering what Save the Cat means, there's the picture of a cat on a rope. If you have a character that's not necessarily likable or relatable in the beginning of the book, what screenwriters do is, and obviously they're not necessarily your antagonist, so you don't want the character to hate them. You have them do something subtle, probably like save a cat. I mean, I guess that's not subtle, but it can't be like the story. You have them do something to kind of endear that character to the reader. So if maybe you're not liking your main character, have her do something redemptive, or have her do something sweet or thoughtful, and maybe see where that takes you. And, you know, because sometimes, like, we write an unlikable character, and that's part of the story. Their story is to have them reform and become a better person, or whatever it is.
So you could focus on having them start to change into a way that you do like.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like this is blasphemy saying this, but if you really hate your character, don't be afraid to toss that manuscript in the trash. Like, it might sound bad, but there have been several books I've started writing, and I haven't had that problem, but I just have this inherent problem with it. I don't know what it is. I can't get through it. I don't enjoy writing it. I'm not having fun, and I'll toss it and I won't look back. And because it's like, I don't want to waste my time on something that isn't, if it's not making me happy, it's not going to make a reader happy.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important that I really like it, which is another reason why I outline really heavily before I start writing. So I have at least like 2 to 3 paragraphs of every single chapter outlined. So I already have the whole story in my head. And like I said, it's like a movie in my head. I've seen it, I've lived it, I know it, so that when I start to write it, I write it real quickly, and I'm already happy with what the ending is. But again, you just have to kind of see for yourself. Hi, Rachel. Because I've had some authors tell me that outlining a novel is so boring and they hate it and they can't write it if they already know what's going to happen. And I'm like, that sounds like a really fun journey that they go on. But I wouldn't be able to handle writing a book if I didn't know how it was going to end. So again, we're all different. We all have different things that we like. So I urge everyone to try it out. Try out a different style. And if you like it, stick with it. If not, then at least you tried it out and you know that it's not for you. So, because one day, years ago, I tried plotting a novel the way J.K. Rowling plots Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And it did not work. I was like, I don't get it. You know, she's a genius. Why doesn't it work? But it worked for her story, and it didn't work for me. So you just have to find your own way. And I really think you should be enjoying what you're writing. You don't have to be enjoying the process of writing, because sometimes I really hate it. But you have to, like, deep down, be really excited about what you're writing for it to be a book that other people will be excited to read, too.
It comes through. It definitely comes through. Well, are we going to wrap up?
I think so, because my dog is losing her mind. She's ready to go for a walk. Okay. I gave her a piece of my ice to shut her up.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. We were such a great group of writers. Yeah,
thank you, guys.
This information was helpful, and if you know any other writers or aspiring writers, people that are just getting involved, please have them direct them to this. It'll be on Cheyenne's page for 24 hours. We post everything on YouTube, so all those will be 18 episodes are on YouTube, and we have a private Facebook group where if you have other questions or, like, you know, things that you don't necessarily want to toss into the comment box, or things that are more in depth or whatever, you can always join us there and ask us. And I see we got one more comment. Plotting is exhausting. I do make points that I absolutely need.
See, everyone's different because I love plotting and outlining. That's my favorite part. Sometimes I wish I could be paid a full-time salary to just write like outline novels and give them to other people. But it really is. It's just what works for you works for you.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you can find us on Facebook at Writers Uncut Group. Find us on YouTube by searching Writers Uncut. Please subscribe. As soon as we get 100 subscribers, we can make our own custom URL, so we don't have to tell you to go search for Writers Uncut. That would be really great, you guys. And join us on Facebook where we can continue chatting. And thank you, everyone. We had a lot of viewers today. That was exciting.
Love it.
And you can find us next Wednesday at the same time on Deirdre's Instagram. So make sure you're following her at Deirdre Spark. You'll see it. If you're watching this, you'll see it.
Yeah.
So thank you, guys.
All right. Have a great writing
Bye.
week. Bye.